Hello, Nitroners, and welcome back to another episode of VFX with Natron. So, today we're going to be talking about something that we've talked about, well, sort of before, which is we actually had a YouTuber commented on a previous video that had been uploaded to YouTube. A fellow by the name of, yeah, it's a fellow, I believe, by the name of Roman Askarov. I believe that's how it's pronounced anyway. He said to himself, "Great job, Pirate Bill. How to edit a node tree inside my group." And it's like, oh, we talked about how to make a group way back in episode 10, but we never actually went into how to get into it once we've loaded it, or once you've closed that group, if you've closed the window, how do you get back into it? That's a really good question, and it could stump a lot of new people. So I thought I'd go into it, but I'd also go a little bit further and talk about how to do this with Pi plugins, the community plugins that people can download, because this opens up a lot of really powerful stuff, and I'm going to talk about the pros and consequences of this as well. Now, I think I may have gone into this in the past, but we've done so many episodes, it's hard to remember them all, and what's been talked about, and what hasn't, and who I've talked to it, because sometimes I'll talk to people individually, and I remember talking about this at one point with somebody, but anyway, we're on rambling. So let's hop over into Natron. So here in Natron we have a default project open, and we have, of course, community plugins. Now, actually, before we go into, let's not jump into the community plugins. Let's first make a simple group. Now, making a group is really easy. All we have to do is create something. So in this case, we're just going to we'll start with a checkerboard, because why? It's easy. There we go. We say, oh, this is a beautiful. We want to make this customized somehow. Let's say, okay, let's add a blur node onto it, and we blur this. And oh yes, oh, this is the most amazing plugin ever, right? Oh yes, fantastic. I'll give this a solid 2 out of 10, maybe, if that. No, can't really give it that much. Anyway, right, we've got this crappy plugin here, or crappy thing that we think is going to be the greatest plugin since sliced bread. And so we select it all, and we hit Control Group, and we have this group node, and it's here, and it's all nice and everything until we go like this, and we go close it, and then we're stuck with this thing here, and we go, uh-oh. Well, I've got it, and I double click on it, and it comes up in okay, I see I can edit it or export it as a Pi plugin, and yeah, what is this? How do I edit this? And the answer to that is actually this little button up here. This is this little. You'll notice that on the group itself, it has this little icon that looks to indicate that it's a group. This little thing off to the side. Now with Pi plugins, or plugins as we call them. There's multiple types of plugins, by the way. We're not talking VFX plugins, we're talking Pi plugins. User community plugins, typically. The ones you download off of GitHub. You might find other ones elsewhere. Anyway, how we see this is a group. We have this little icon here. We'll zoom in on it right here. This little icon right here. You'll see up here it has the same icon right here, and except for this one has a little eyeball on it. And if we hover over it, as we just saw before I moved my mouse, it says pressing this button will show the underlying node graph used for the implementation of this node. So we click on that, and lo and behold, it opens the group one right here. Now you say to yourself, wow, that was easy. That's not that hard at all. And it just put it off to the side. We have our original, node graph over here, and we have our group over here. And then it has the source. If there was something that was coming in, it would come in up here, and then it would go out down here. And these are the two bits that we put into it, okay? Well, this is all great and everything, but this isn't very useful. Well, it's useful from the standpoint that a lot of people may not have known about this. And it's obviously not all that complex. But here's something we might want to do. What happens if we want to deconstruct it? I believe we can actually tell it to edit onto here. We can tell it to expand the group right here, and we expand the group, which is Control Alt G. It will undo the group, so we can take it out of the group so it can become part of our actual node graph. So if we want to, you know, expand it or do something more to it, we can do it. Do know, however, in doing that, any controls you put on the group node will be destroyed. So not the best thing. You got to be careful with that. Let's do something else. Let's get rid of that blur node because that's not overly useful. Let's add in an actual community plugin. We right click here and we go into our community plugins here, and we have all these different things here. We also have one of them, I believe, is sources or something. Oh no, it's under GLSL. We have this thing called sources, and there's a whole lot, and it's going off the bottom of the screen, even though it's not going off the bottom of my screen because my screen's bigger than the screen we're broadcasting. But let's see. These are all background things. So, for example, let's find a nice one. If we did a croc turbulence, for example, I don't know if this is really all that nice, but it's good enough. We see this and we say to ourselves, wow, that looks really cool. How do we, you know, how is this ever made? Well, first of all, we could tell because it said GLSO on it that this is obviously a shader toy node. And you say, well, but this doesn't look like a shader toy because shader toy doesn't have all these controls and everything. Well, how do we go into it? Well, if we look up here, and lo and behold, this plugin actually has the exact same kind of little icon up here, the exact same little group view inside of it. And so if you ever open up anything, any plugin, and you click on it, and you'll see that it says we're looking now inside of that, and we can see though that it's different. It's ghosted out here, and it looks very different. Well, we can see that there's a shader tool, but we can't actually select it and edit it or do anything. We can see that it goes to an output, and oh well, actually it did allow us to sort of select it. Oh, there we go. We selected it, but we can't do anything to it, and that's because up here we can see that it's locked, and it says here, clicking this unlock button will convert. Whoops. Well, if I stop moving my hand off of the mouse, come on. Oh, don't do that. There we go. Oh, that's not being very useful. Clicking the unlock button will convert the pi plug to a regular group node. Anyway, this just basically tells you you're going to turn it to a regular group node. And what that means is that this will no longer act like a plugin. It will turn it into a locally referenced plugin, or not referenced, a locally kept plugin. What do I mean by that? Well, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this. Now we can edit this. You'll notice it's no longer ghosted out, although the controls themselves are ghosted out or grayed out because they're actually controlled externally on the group node itself. And that is because, well, because it's a group node. But what that means now is this: if somebody were to, if the creator of this plugin updated this plugin, well, all right, first of all, I've got to put a caveat in here, which is when you save a project file, you actually, what gets loaded into your local file is kept in the local file and won't update per se, unless it is a plugin, for the most part, a really not very heavily modified plugin. In other words, if you didn't do anything to it or group it or do anything super fancy with the plugin can sometimes, when you load into a new thing, if your version of the plugin is different than the version of the plugin that was saved in the project, it will load in the new version and automatically update. Now, if controls in the plugin have changed, then it can break the plugin. But that usually what Natron will do is it will scan it, and if a difference, it keeps sort of a local reference inside of it, and if the controls break or are going to break when you are about to load the new version, what it will actually do is it will deconstruct the old version inside of your old project, which is kind of neat, or at least it used to do this. I haven't verified that this does it anymore, and it's a tricky thing to do. But what that means is that if you have an old version of a plugin used in a project, it won't update it to the newest version by default. It will keep it relative to the project. However, if the new version is still control compatible, in other words, the controls that you've animated and done have been changed on the plugin, or excuse me, if you've animated them and they've been in its update, the updated version still uses the same exact controls, then what Natron will do is, or at least this has been my experience, is that Natron will update the plugin to the newest version. And if it doesn't, well, I apologize, it's changed, and it did it at one point. Well, that's my recollection of this, and I didn't want to be fibbing. And if I'm fibbing, there are easy ways to actually transfer your animation from an old version to a new version if for some reason it's broken. But the whole point is that that if you have a plugin that is that hasn't been changed too drastically and doesn't conflict with the new one, it hasn't been modified again from what the base is, and it's compatible, it will usually update to the new version. If you update your plugin folder, it will load in the new one, and that's called referencing, because the plugins are referenced in. At least that's my understanding, and that's why it's locked. But the second we unlock the plugin, then it will never do that. That guarantees it. That by doing what we just did, where we said that this is now local, by check it or clicking that, now this plugin, no matter what we do, will never update to a new version of the plugin. This is guaranteed to be saved as is with our project, and it won't break or do anything, well, break any more than it might if it were to the outside of whatever. I didn't want to go too far into that. So that's an important thing. So why is this beneficial? Why do I say this is a really, it's not necessarily that other programs don't, you can't edit user-made plugins. In both the Fusion, Shake, you could do this to a degree. And there's usually in most programming or most compositing programs, there's two types of plugins. There are what are called C plugins, well, I shouldn't say C. There are compiled plugins, which are run usually in C, C#, or some language, whatever language the program's plugin architecture works off of. One of the things that's nice about Natron is it uses its actual architecture for other plugins is OpenFX, which happens to be compatible with Nuke and Fusion. Well, Fusion to a degree, because Fusion's a little, I want to say Fusion's a bit flaky on that end. Natron's actually pretty good about using OpenFX. But those are the sort of compiled ones where you really, if you wanted to edit those, you would have to have access to the code. And if there's open source code, OpenFX plugins that you can get, like actually almost all of the native Natron plugins that come with Natron are open source OpenFX plugins. So in theory, those can be loaded into both Nuke and into Fusion. Although I will tell you that not all of them work in Fusion, because I haven't tested it in Nuke, because I haven't used Nuke in quite some time, and I didn't really use Nuke anyway. I do know that Fusion it doesn't like all of the Natron plugins, and in fact, some of them in newer versions of Fusion can cause Fusion to fail to run. So just if you happen to want to use those, the native Natron OpenFX plugins inside of something else, do know that in Fusion, if it's for some reason stops running, it's probably because you had a conflicting plugin, and that's a problem. But anyway, that's another thing. Then there's in Natron, there's also what are called the community plugins, which are Pi plugins, which are basically Python. Basically, all they are is group nodes that are saved. So all of these, we got tons of these, all of these here, all these fancy things. These are just projects that other people made and saved so that we can so they can take an input from inside of Natron and be reused. And what this means, this is really exciting, because this means that this is the real exciting part about this, is it means that you can basically take and make a plugin. If Natron doesn't have a feature or something that you want, you can build it. It may take you forever to build this thing that does it, but then you can save it out as a plugin and you can pull it back in, and then somebody can take that if they wanted to and build off of it. So for example, let's look at something less, I don't know, there's all types of things. I don't want to go into one that's too detailed or complex. I'm trying to figure, but actually let's look at a time. We have the time loop node. All right, that looks really fancy. It's looping time, right? Let's see if actually this might not work with this. All right, let's hit play first of all with this. All right. And so we're sitting here and we're saying to ourselves, okay, well, this is going along, and this just goes to the end, and then it, loops back. Technically, because this is an OpenGL plugin, this, so OpenGL plugins can, or Shader Toy plugins, can be a little bit funky and have issues sometimes with time loop or with time offset nodes and stuff. But it's gotten better in newer versions. I haven't really gone over the fact that a lot of those issues, it's mainly if you try to really do multi-sampling from two different points in times. If you just do a general offset, it doesn't work too bad. If you try to do something where it evaluates a whole bunch of frames and compares them and links them together, that can be really flaky, because it can get, well, it's weird. Anyway, so we just put this on time loop. What's our time loop do? It says the time loop has a start frame, which is 0, and then it says that the length of this loop is going to be 20 frames. Let's see. So after 20 frames, this should basically bounce back and just constantly loop that 20 frames, and that's exactly what it's doing. And so, and then we could change this in theory, if everything's working right, to like 60 frames. And so if we go back in time and do this, and then at 60 frames, every 60 frames, it should loop. But it does, is it actually looping on 60 frames, or is it still stuck at 20? This is one of the problems with the time loop. Let's set this to 60 frames and see. I just want to see if it's actually, and this may be, we may have hit a problem. This is one of the things with OpenFX plugins, is they can get a little ahead. It can cause a pause. So yeah, you can see that the time loop node, this is the problem with the time loop node, is that when we get to frame 20, got to frame 20, and then it resets. So it's not, this control actually broke. I talked about that in the past. So you say to yourself, oh, well, that stinks. The time loop node is broken. We can't use it. Well, use this plugin to us. Excuse me. It's a useless plugin to us, right? Totally useless. Or is it? Well, let's take a look inside of it. We go in here and we look at it and we say, oh, all it is a time offset node. What in the blazes are they doing here? Well, we can see if we brought it in locally and we said to ourselves, oh, it's getting something. Uh-oh, look at that. It says it's broken somehow. Well, it's got an expression here. We go to edit the expression and we can see, oh, it's getting here. It's saying this group get. Oh, okay, it's saying this group get this start. And it's saying, and then it's getting the length. So this is what it's supposed to be doing from this group. All right. That should work. So what is this group? Why is it throwing an error? It says it's giving a result 1 here, but it's showing an error up there. Well, that's weird. Let's hit cancel. Let's go back out here. Let's see if it still, let's see if that's actually, is it working now? Did it suddenly fix itself. Now it's going out to 60 frames. All right. So now the question is it actually going out? Let's set up, set that correctly. We want this to be 250. So we're going to set this out to 250. Oops, 250. There we go. So it fits in there. So now let's see whether this actually is going to loop. Now, all we did to this thing to try and fix it is we went into it, made it a local editable thing. It was broken moments ago. We went and we edited it. We looked at it. We said, oh, that looks like it should work. Doesn't make sense that it didn't work. When we fixed it, look at that. It works now. So it's not that it was broken. It was somehow the plugin just broke itself. And that sometimes does happen. And that's one of the quirky things about it. But this means that really we were able to salvage it because we were able to actually edit it. That's a really useful thing. And that's something that's really, I won't say it's unique to Natron again, but it's pretty darn close to unique. I believe, I'm not 100%, I haven't written, I will tell you, you can script inside of Fusion, but I haven't done a whole lot of the scripting inside of Fusion itself. So I don't want to, I know people do it, and I know you can take Fusion stuff and sort of integrate it and do really fancy stuff within DaVinci Resolve, and it's pretty neat if you happen to be into it. And I believe some of that type of some of those types of things actually work in the free version as well, although I'm not positive because I don't own the free version. Anyway, but I don't, that's again off topic, but something, just because I don't want people to think this is 100% unique, but this is something that is less common in a lot of things, and it's a really useful ability to be able to go in and edit our plugins so that we can potentially salvage and fix things. And by doing this, I might be able to say, well, I'll just fix the time loop node. Hey, you know what? I can go over to our time loop node here, and I believe on the node information, I could re-export it if I had all the information for how it was, and maybe fix the node. And then I could, if it starts working in the new version that I just made and fixed, because you saw, I think the reason that it was broken is it just had some error inside. Oh, we don't have it open anymore. It had some error inside of it on that node. It just had a problem. It's throwing an error again. It's saying it's an invalid expression. It's saying a traceback. It's finding an error in line 1 of the expression. Okay, so what this could be, I'll tell you what. There's a lot of things that people don't realize. This comes down to the whole point that a lot of times expressions can't evaluate in Natron. I've talked about this in the past. You can't evaluate something from another place in Natron and then in the same line that you're outputting it. Okay, the reason is because it creates a problem. So what I think the problem here might be is that we are not assigning this to a variable, and the problem is that it gets set on one frame and it gets cached. Okay, because it doesn't have a variable. The only way to guarantee this statement is going to get evaluated on every frame is to assign it to a variable. So if I were to this is in my mind what would unbreak this. I'm going to try to do this. We're going to try and fix this on the thing. So I'm going to just say that I'm going to make a thing called time equals this. All right. So that's my time. All right. And then, and now I'm going to make this multi-line, okay? And then I'm going to say, I'm going to type in ret for return equals time, all right? So it's going to return the value I just made here, this local variable in here. And why did I do that? Because what this is going to do is every time this expression is evaluated, it's going to say, oh, I need to set this variable here this in between variable to this. So it's going to, on every frame, it's going to try and grab this information from that. It's going to say that it needs to be reevaluated. Okay, and the reason that's important is because before, as I said, it cached it on the first frame and it says, I'm done. And that's why it was throwing the error. Whereas now I've set it to a local variable. Let's see if that fixed it. Or if that fixes it and it says expression is invalid. Okay, let's see. Expression is invalid. Maybe it's because Tom is it could be, it's possible I did something. All right, let's do it. Maybe I'm trying to, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Tom might be a bad thing. Let's just put T for it. So we're going to return T. All right, it's multi-line. It still says the expression is invalid. All right, why is it invalid? Edit expression. It's saying T equals range from frame. All right, so the problem could be, I'm going to just try and do one more thing. All right, this could be more complex. It could be that we're trying to get these variables from another point in this group. So it's saying this is a group, this here, this right here is a thing. So we want to get this. This is what the part that's getting cached. Let's try doing this. I don't know what this is. It says length get. So I'm going to just type in something. I don't want to do len because that's, I believe, an actual Python function. Length equals this. All right. We're going to say length equals that. And then then we're going to say, make another variable here. We're going to go start equals this. Let's try and fix this. Start equals this. Okay. And so then what I'm going to do here is change this to length. And then this to start. Right. And then so now what it's going to do is on every frame, it's going to first evaluate this, and it's going to get this and set length. Then it's going to set start, and then it's going to set T, and then it's going to return T. All right. Technically, we might be able at this point, because we're now doing it with local variables, we could probably just return this last thing as opposed to T. Let's do that because I think it makes it more obvious. We're going to do that on the last bit. So those are the two bits that we're getting from somewhere else. Let's try that. Let's see if that fixes it. Nope, it's saying the expression is invalid. Why is that expression invalid? This should not be an invalid expression. We have controls here. It says, all right, let's take a look at those user controls. Maybe the user parameters, it has start, it has length. All right, all right. You know what the problem is? I know what the problem is. The problem is it's not using the proper name. The name is not this group. Well, no, that should work fine. What am I thinking? Whoa, no, that's not the problem. All right, let's go back here. Let's edit the expression. Now, this group should work. It's giving us a correct result here, but it's not. What is it not doing right? Range is a Python function. Top 1 minus 1. Okay. It's possible it is possible that we may have to do this just looking at this. I'm trying to now see start minus 1 would be 0 minus 1. Start is 0, and we're subtracting 1, that would be negative 1. That would be, why would start be out? I don't know. I'm not gonna. I'd have to really think about this. Oh, that was actually. This wasn't. I was hoping we could fix this maybe in this. Anyway, it's saying it's invalid, but it does not seem to be. Let's see if it actually is invalid. We know that the current one, it's set to loop here at 60. Let's see if changing this to some other value. Let's change it to 50. So there we go. We changed it to 50. Now is it functioning and repeating? Now it's repeating at 50. So we didn't. It's not actually a broken. It's not actually broken. It is. It's actually repeating off by a little bit. It's not actually broken. It's just reporting is broken for some reason. But then it fixes itself. So it's not an invalid thing. It's working perfectly fine. So we can see it. We fixed it. It's working. I don't know. I can't tell you why it's throwing that little error there and then works. But it definitely works now when we have it locally and we change this. In fact, let's set this to a nice short number like 10, and then we'll go here and start it. And it's working just fine. So we can see that this does work. This time loop does work. I would do if I were writing a time loop, I would have probably done it slightly different. Anyway, we've gone on for plenty of time. This is basically to just go about showing how we can go into plugins and we can fix them and go into groups and so forth, and talking about the fact that this little icon up there exists. And the cool part about this is that means if somebody out there happens to be working with the plugin and it breaks, you can go into the thing, fix it, and then you can actually resubmit it to GitHub to get updated. So anybody can actually fix plugins. If you find broken plugins or in the community plugins, try and fix them. Try and help. And try and go through the steps. Look back at episode 10, the actual, I think that was the one on creating a group. I'm pretty sure, because that's where the comment was from. Anyway, I think that's where it was from. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers the vast majority of what we want to do. I will. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just pull in one of the more complex stuff, and just so people know, some of the plugins, just because community or plugins don't have to be stored in the community plugins, that is where this is the layout if somebody wants to contribute and have it be seen as a community plugin. For example, we made the cloud PB cloud node, which isn't actually stored in the community plugins, but if you put it in there, it reports inside of this, even though it's stored in a slightly different hierarchy, because I've been lazy and I don't think it's quite worthy of putting in there, but yet it's a little sluggish for my taste, and I'm finicky about me plugins. Anyway, so anyway, we can that's how we can do it. So right, I wanted to just let's just, before we end this live stream, let's just pull that up for us. For example, let's pull up our PB cloud, which is really big and complex. I'm going to go into it. We can click on that and we can see that indeed this is, these things can be really, really big, and you can go into it. If you didn't download it, you download something that has the PB Cloud node in it, you can just get your plugin right here. Here's the whole node graph to edit and tweak and do whatever you want to your heart's content, even though it relies on reshade nodes, which I'll question. I'll question my use of that, because that created some of the issues with this. But anyway, but then now this is local. So there we have it. All right. I don't want to make this drag on any further, so, right. Thanks for watching. Keep on Natroning.